So this was the top 25 going into week 6. Just a nice reminder, as we have a totally different top 25 from the AB. I think we've been pretty good, pretty solid with our top 25 and what we've been creating over here. Here are the teams again that played. We got a few of them wrong. I think the obvious ones were the massive upsets there in the Rose Bowl and in the Swamp. But we also got one wrong there in Cincinnati where the Bearcats won. But let's dive into it. Let's start with number 1, Ohio State hosting Minnesota. 24-point favorites. Well, they definitely covered 42-3. Julian Sain, I just saw a few of his highlights. Didn't get to see much of that game, but he's looking good as expected. Then on top of that, the wide receiver core also helping him out. I kind of want to see more from the running game though, but there's more than a few games to be watching the Buckeyes. If I'm not mistaken, they'll be playing in Champaign this upcoming weekend against Illinois. One of the major upsets from this past weekend, Texas going down to Gainesville to take on Florida, and they lose to the Gators 29-21. Yeah, this was a disappointing result. Texas was only favored by 7 points, at least the last time I checked. Might have been a point or half a point difference there on Saturday morning. This game, I actually just watched a highlight before I went live, and it's kind of disappointing to see people that talk about football and they don't really like look into what's actually going on. I see like prominent accounts talking about how like Arch Manning, they apologize that, or yeah, basically apologizing to Sark that they don't know why they were saying that they should be playing Arch Manning over Quentin Ewers. But when you have to really look at it, like Quentin Ewers had one of the best offensive lines in front of him for most of his time there in Texas. Now, I'm not making a total excuse for Arch Manning here, but when you have a fresh offensive line, you had a left guard that was struggling to where they had to make some switches there in that position. Yeah, you're just not going to be able to distribute the ball as easily as you were doing the year before. And you look at his numbers in front of the offensive line last year compared to what we are seeing here in 2025, it's night and day. Absolute night and day. And on top of that, Texas did not run the ball whatsoever in this game, or able to. I think it was like less than 60 yards. And usually when you hold Texas to less than that, you're going to be winning that game every time. And we saw that against Ohio State last season. The Georgia games there in the championship and in the regular season. That's just like the checklist of a defensive coordinator when they go up against a Longhorn offense. But yeah, 29-21 is the result in the Swamp. And the Billy Napier experience continues here in Gainesville. We have Texas A&M hosting Mississippi State. This one seemed like it was going to be close, but the Aggies pulled away. They were 14.5-point favorites. Ended up being 31-9. And yeah, defense showed up as usual. I think that's kind of the best part of this team. And then Marcel Reed just continues to progress. Just seeing highlights of him throw the ball effectively. One thing I like to see is that this, again, Texas A&M defense shutting down the speed that Mississippi State has and are really neutralizing that. And if I'm not mistaken, it would have been just 3 field goals there for the Starkville Dogs. Or it might have been a touchdown where they went for 2 for some reason as well. But I didn't get the chance to double check that. Iowa State headed over on the road to Cincinnati to take on the Bearcats and lose 38-30. They mustered up a decent comeback as they were down pretty bad there at halftime by multiple possessions, and it just looked like it wasn't going to happen for the Cyclones. If I'm not mistaken, it was like a last drive, and I think Rocco Beck had an incomplete pass, and it was a turnover on downs, and then Cincinnati closed the game out that way. I'm 90% sure that's how that game ended. But they've been dealing with some injury issues there in the defense, especially in the secondary, and that's why kind of Cincinnati lit them up. But even on the ground, the Bearcats were slicing and dicing that front seven of Iowa State. Then on top of that, their kicker, Conradi, who came up big for the Cyclones in that game for the Cyhawk Trophy against Iowa, he was also out. So there was kicking situations where they left some points not on the board. And that's why it also ended 38-30. Still a little disappointing, but it kind of makes a lot of sense. Usually when you have injuries and you go play Cincinnati in Cincinnati, you're going to lose that game. This happened to Arizona State last year when they lost Lovett for a weekend, and they had to play Sims, the backup. As we continue to another upset that happened this past weekend, Penn State goes to the Rose Bowl and lose 42-37. Complete shock. What a total fumble there in Pasadena for James Franklin and company. They were 25-point favorites. And yeah, they lose by, what's the math on that? It's 5. Just did not expect UCLA whatsoever to pull this off. And then on top of that, the Bruins had not led in a game so far going into week 6. Well, they led first off with a touchdown drive there. And then it was basically like Bruins throughout that first half. I think Penn State was able to score twice, one on a blocked punt, or that might have happened earlier on in the second half. Almost made the comeback there on the road, but you just gotta just shake your head on what the hell just happened. It was Nico Iamaleava. He just lit it up, not just through the air, but on the ground. He had a lot of explosive plays where he found gaps there in the Nittany Lion defense, who wasn't really respecting him and his legs, to be quite honest with you. When you have defenders turning their heads not the right way, that's going to happen. And on top of that, looked like there was a lot of, I guess, man coverage to where you don't have a quarterback spy. Again, you're not respecting Nico's legs. Bad things are going to happen to you. As we continue, one we got finally right to talk about. Alabama hosting Vanderbilt 30-14 there. We went a little in depth with our review earlier in the stream. All I can really just add, Jam Miller is back. Ty Simpson is getting things rolling. And roll tide. We got Georgia hosting Kentucky. This game I was a little worried for because of last year. Kentucky made it a bit of a fight in Lexington, but in Athens, 35-14 is the end result. And Georgia at least covered from the last time I saw the line. Minus 21 favorites for the Dogs. And Kirby Smart, well, they bounce back after losing to Alabama at home and get their first SEC win of the season. West Virginia went over to Provo, Utah. I was going to say Provo Cougar for some reason. Regardless, 38-24 was the end result there. This was one of the weeknight games where, BYU just dominated. I would say the defense came up big. I know they gave up 24 points, but there was a lot of big defensive plays. This is what this team is really all about. Getting turnovers, setting up your young offense, or at least young quarterback with excellent field position, not putting so much pressure on him, and Bear Bachmeier, who I think is actually going to work out over time. Like later down in the season when they have that big game, I believe in Ames and then in Lubbock, Texas against Texas Tech. We might see BYU shock the world. But 38-24 is the end result there in Provo. 28-22 for Miami, heading over to Tallahassee and beating their in-state rival Florida State. Another one where we had a in-depth review of earlier in the stream. All I can really add to that is Mario Cristobal almost fumbled, as that game should have been probably like 35, maybe even 42, in between that range to like 14, but ends up being 28-22. We keep continuing. We have Texas Tech handing Houston their first loss of the season, 35-11. Tech really coasting off of their, I think it was only 28 points in the first half. They scored another one to open up the third quarter and shut out Houston, who only scored, I believe, that 11 points there in the first half. So good defensive performance. All right. Offensive one, especially there early on. I think it was 21 points there just in the first quarter. And again, that's the fastest scoring offense in the country. And they continue to do that against pretty good teams. Again, Houston undefeated going into that game. Kent State headed down to Norman, Oklahoma to take on the Sooners. And they lose big 44-0. And actually, I don't think Oklahoma covered, which is kind of interesting. I think it was like 44.5 points. Ends up being 44. It might have even been 45. But that was kind of an interesting scoreline because of what I saw on the lines going into the weekend. So maybe there's some fun shenanigans. Especially John Mateer there on the sideline, even though he didn't play. Anyways, we keep moving to Illinois, heading over to West Lafayette, Indiana to take on Purdue. The Fighting Alumni continue to win in the Big Ten. Back-to-back wins now over USC and now the Boilermakers, 43-27. Purdue were up early. Then Illinois made those adjustments. A very resilient team, I would say. Not against Indiana, though. Obviously, that blowout happened not too long ago in Bloomington. But here also on the road in the Big Ten, they outperformed Purdue again 43-27. Luke Altmaier, just a hell of a quarterback. Just got to prove it maybe this upcoming weekend, as I believe they play Ohio State. There's a couple big games in the Big Ten this upcoming weekend. That one and then the one over in Eugene between the Hoosiers and the Ducks. We have Tulsa heading over to Memphis to take on the Tigers. Memphis wins 45-7. They cover. They were favored by 20 points. Tulsa, even though they beat Oklahoma State, they're pretty bad. Like, they're pretty bad. They lost to New Mexico State earlier in the season. That was a miss for us. I was a little pissed off that the Golden Hurricanes couldn't get the job done there. But shouldn't be surprised because in 2024, they lost to Louisiana Tech. Here, they continue to lose, again, against number 23, Memphis. The final game, another weeknight game to talk about. That's USF hosting Charlotte. They blow out the 49ers 54-26. This game almost got completely out of hand just in the first quarter. I think it was like 26-0. And then it ended up obviously being 54-26. Charlotte just they at least in that first half looked like an FCS team. Like complete shambles. Regardless, USF continues to win. They, I think, cover. What's the math on that? What's 54 minus 26? I think that is 38. Yeah, they cover. They were favored by 27.5. As that was the top 25 here at your Sports Outpost and all the teams that participated this past weekend. Obviously, there was a ton missing because of the massive buys. There were 35 teams with a bye here in Week 6. The teams that were ranked, we got Oregon on that list, Tulane, LSU, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. Oh, and Missouri. Can't forget about the Tigers and there's some Big 12 teams as well that I'm forgetting. Arizona State, Utah, and Indiana. Yeah, those are the bye teams, as that is also, again, the top 25 section before we move on to all 51 games from this past weekend.